Hey, what's up everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another exciting edition of the show. Today I'm going to be attacking a debate I've been seeing all over social media and even on some debate shows. The results and opinions, well, they seem pretty split, but frankly I think it's really straightforward. So sit back, relax, and watch as I set the record straight. Who would you rather build your franchise around, Luka Doncic or Zion Williamson? That's the golden question, ladies and gentlemen. I first want to begin with Zion to get the obvious out of the way and discuss the injury aspect of this whole argument. I want to look at this argument from a slightly different perspective than everybody else does, though. Obviously, more people fear Zion getting hurt than Luka, but if you look at it from that perspective and that perspective only, it's in a way one-sided. You know, if you're solely basing your decision off of, oh, I'm going with player A because I have this, probability in my mind that player B is more likely to get hurt and player A is more likely to subsequently stay healthy, that's not enough ground to stand up on. Instead, let's engage in a fun little exercise. Let's for a second forget about the various lower body extremity injuries Zion has sustained, such as missing several months of AAU action with a deep knee bruise in 2017, or when he had a foot injury during his senior year in high school, or at Duke, when he famously burst through one of his shoes and injured his knees, causing him to miss several weeks, or when he went down at Summer League suffering a knee-to-knee bump, or most recently, when Zion had arthroscopic knee surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his right knee in October, causing him to miss the first 3 months of the NBA regular season. Let's for a second disregard all that and just forget about all that just for right now. Thus, instead of asking which player is more likely to get hurt throughout their entire career, let's for a second presume and imagine that both players sustain the same exact injuries throughout their entire career. Because as we know as fans of the NBA, it's not out of the realm of possibility for any player to get hurt, Zion or Luka. In a weird yet unfortunate way, it's part of their job description. So this in itself brings us to the more in-depth and developed questions we should be asking. So if true, if both players sustain the same exact injury throughout their entire career, say ligaments such as the MCL or the ACL, or tendons like the Achilles or the quad, which player would you trust more? Which player would you put your money on to return to their full, normal selves? And that question, ladies and gentlemen, that question inherently leads us to perhaps the even more important question we need to be asking. Which of these two players do you believe can sustain a longer and more prosperous career while still being effective and maintaining their prime years and high level of play? It's easily Luka Doncic because his game is built to last longer, because he's not overly athletic and his game is not dependent on uber athleticism. Zion's game, on the other hand, is directly predicated and dependent on athleticism. Luka doesn't jump the highest, run the fastest, have the best first step or motor. He's just a player with a high basketball IQ who relies on his skills and reading certain angles to capitalize on certain opportunities. He can sustain his high level of play for much longer. He's not a microwave, injury-prone, short-lived sensation like Blake Griffin or Amari Stoudemire, something I fear Zion can become. Early in his sophomore season, Luka Doncic was a strong MVP candidate. This ended up propelling the Mavericks to a solid playoff position despite having an at-best average supporting cast, which featured a disappointing and lackluster season from their supposed Robin and Kristaps Porzingis and a season-ending injury to a guy they heavily relied on as a role player in Dwight Powell. Despite all that, he was a triple-double threat on a nightly basis, averaging 28.7 points per game, 8.7 assists per game, and 9.3 rebounds per game. He was scoring more points per 100 possessions than any other player in NBA history. He's versatile and dynamic in 5 different fashions. Number 1, he's a perimeter shooter. And no, he's not just a set shooter, but he's really a guy who can put the ball on the ground and get his own. Hence, his infamous step back. Number 2, he's a well above average mid-range scorer. Number 3, he's big and strong. That means he can get to the paint at his own volition. He has no trouble with that. Number 4, he has a very high basketball IQ. That makes him a great playmaker and a great passer for his teammates. And finally, number 5, he can play positions 1 through 4 very effectively, something only a few guys in the NBA can actually do very well. Luka Doncic is a dynamic scorer at all three levels who can truly be deadly at all of those levels on the floor. He's a guy who you can give it to late in a game and trust to create a shot in a variety of different fashions. I'd rather build my franchise around a shot maker, a shot creator, a guy who I can trust to give it to late in a game rather than have to place that responsibility elsewhere on another player. I hold a firm belief that Zion Williamson cannot be the best player in a championship team. Let's look at these stats really quickly. Nearly 80% of Zion's field goals are assisted on. When you compare that to Luka Doncic, where only 20% of his field goals are assisted on, there's really no comparison in the argument of who would you rather have your team led by, who would you rather build your franchise around. Luka Doncic is the clear-cut answer, and that, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you set the record straight.